Sure, sure.
I'm meeting with Greg Stolze. He's a prolific author, a member of the Naperville Writing Group, which is my association with him, and like I say, very author of many novels and short stories, and a great asset to the Naperville Writing Group and all
Thank
the
you.
helpful kind of commentary when we do critiques. A lot of great ideas. So thank you, sir, for your help over the years with my writing.
You've got a lot going on. It's often easier to help something good be great than to take something that's bad and try and improve it. Or at least, sometimes you get a story where it's like, oh, the obvious problem is this. If you just,
Yeah. Well, you always have good insights, so it's much
thanks.
appreciated. Yeah, I was trying to think. I mean, I have no idea, but how many books have you written in your career now?
That's my shelf. Oh, and there's another one up there. So those I've all contributed to. Stuff that I've written all by myself. I don't know, 20?
That's amazing. It's,
when you don't have a day job, it's not that amazing.
Well, that's true. You are a full-time writer compared to
it's
that's my excuse, but now I don't have that excuse anymore. I'm more or less retired, so. But you do just as well with the long pieces as the short form. So I know some of the pieces you've brought in. You've been in short story anthologies and, like I say, self-published all those novels.
Yeah, well, self-published and other published. So it's a mixed bag. And with self-publish, you get to do everything yourself and be the ultimate control freak. And the drawback to that is that you have to do everything yourself, and there's not always someone around saying, maybe you should pump the brakes on this thing, or just take a pause and reconsider. So that is the great use I've gotten out of Naperville Writers Group, is to get kind of out of my own head and be able to show stuff to people and say, does this look to you the way it looks to me?
Yeah, it's hard to deal with, even though that's a good sized group that we meet with. The tastes vary, and not everybody is into your genre, which is mostly sci-fi, fantasy. How would you describe it?
Science fiction, fantasy, and horror. Well, remember Randy Upton, and he's like, oh, weird stuff.
I was thinking of exactly his words. That's the way he always described his work. Yeah, I write weird stuff.
And fair. So it's October. I've got a horror novel that I've just put up on Kickstarter, and I'm hoping to get funded and get in people's hands.
I remember when we were reading that, at least excerpts from that in the group. You want to tell people about it a little bit?
Sure. I've got the preview copy here. So yeah, this is one of those titles where I was like, is that really a good title? And, then I'm like, well, people are either going to really like it or they will instantly know it's not for them. And if you're a person who instantly says, I will never read a book called God Cancer, then we've both, avoided wasting some time. So it is a fusion of, it's a cosmic horror story in the Cthulhu mythos sort of vein, which posits that human beings are meaningless blobs of protoplasm in an uncaring universe. So it's a very scientific perspective.
Yeah.
And that the Earth has been haunted and occupied by unimaginably vast and superior alien intellects in the past. And one very famous novella in this sort of horror genre is At the Mountains of Madness. And it's a narrative of this Antarctic exploration team finding a hidden alien city, an abandoned city. And through this, finding out, oh, yeah, Earth used to basically belong to these 7-foot tall, horrendous plant creatures that came here from elsewhere. And it seems like humankind is a result of their endeavors, either as, pet, food source, something else. So it's a famous work and very influential. And so I took that. And one of the haunting scenes in At the Mountains of Madness is this leftover entity that screams "Tekilili, Tekilili" as it tries to chase down our protagonists as they flee. And it turns out that the phrase "Tekilili, Tekilili" originally came from an Edgar Allan Poe novel, his only novel, which is the narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket, which is this colonialist narrative where these guys reach this island, and Tekilili is the great taboo of the natives there. And, they're like, that's the white annihilation that will come and destroy us all. So I read that. It's not great. There's a reason Poe is known for his short stories and poetry and not the one novel he ever wrote.
Yeah.
At the Mountains of Madness is great. And I'm like, is there a way that I can, create a continuity where it's like, oh yeah, the Poe narrative fits into At the Mountains of Madness, fits into something in the modern day. And so I was working on that idea, and then I read The Emperor of All Maladies by, I think the author's name is Dr. Siddhartha Mukherjee, who is an oncologist. And it's a nonfiction book saying, okay, here's what people know about cancer, and here is sort of how our knowledge of it has progressed throughout the ages. And every time we think we've got a hold on it, it's like a page turns and we realize it's more complicated and more difficult than we assumed.
Yeah.
And, and he talks about, he's like, yeah, as an oncologist, if nothing else kills you first, cancer will eventually get you. You cannot, it may be so endemic in our DNA that you cannot escape it and still be human. So I read that and I'm like, that's a horror novel premise right there.
Scary. Yeah.
And so the novel I've got has two non-intersecting plot lines, and one is a modern Antarctic archaeological research team trying to retrace the steps described in At the Mountains of Madness. And the other is this doctor who is a world famous oncologist and gets hired by a billionaire to treat him in secret, because the billionaire's like, if word gets out I'm sick, it'll hurt the stocks, and I gotta keep the stocks safe. And so half the book is these scientists at the bottom of the world in these freezing conditions, pushing through towards these unanticipated dangers. And the other half of the book is this doctor on this luxury yacht out in international waters because his therapies are so advanced that he could get arrested for unethical experimentation if he did it, in a country. And so he's just, fun in the sun and battling mankind's most implacable foe, cancer.
Well, I remember the scenes in Antarctica and the beginning of the book when you introduced the doctor and so on. So it does sound intriguing.
But, pledge, get a copy.
Well, I'll post, if you don't mind, I'll post your the link to your
I would love that like candy.
Your video and the
Yeah, I'll get that to you for sure.
Yeah, I think I think you did send it out. So if maybe I'll post it in the comments here on the bookies blog and so
Uh,
on. Hopefully
Thank
you'll
you
get
very much.
some.
Yeah. So it's a self-publication thing, and and you've gone the route of traditional publishing with The Ghost of Jamie McVeigh. Um, Part of me felt that no one's going to want to publish a book with this title, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm just too lazy to hunt out an agent.
Well, the turnaround is a bit faster.
Oh
You
yeah.
do it yourself, right?
I remember one time I submitted my horror novel Mask of the Other to a publisher and didn't hear from them and didn't hear from them and didn't hear from them, and eventually decided, okay, I guess I'm just self-publishing this, and ran a crowdfunding fundraiser, got the money, sent it out to people, did fulfillment, and was in the middle of, I'd gotten paid. And that's when I heard back from them. They're like, yeah, we're going to give this a pass. And I'm like, okay,
Wow.
sure. And, if a company doesn't allow simultaneous submissions, but even if they do permit you to show it to as many people as you want, the turnaround's a long
Yeah.
time. And, I'm like, if I'm in a position where I can get paid this year instead of in 2 years, it may be worthwhile to get paid a little less to make that happen.
Yeah.
But, it's different book by book.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I say I'm respectful of your great experience with all of this, and I'm sure you've had your ups and downs, but it's the writing that counts to us and as readers. So I wish you luck with the God Cancer. What I've read so far is just amazing. So
Thank you. Thank you. Well, and, and as I was thinking about, Ghost of Jamie McVeigh, I'm like, this really does sort of illustrate how very much variety there is in the broad category of scary stories, right?
yeah.
Jamie McVeigh is like this. I'm not sure I want to call it a traditional Gothic story. The thing you brought in to group about the windmill, I'm like, this is just completely a traditional Gothic story. You know, ghosts are things that have unjustly been forgotten. It even touches on the constant haunted house story preoccupation with property values. And it's got this sort of gendered regret baked into the backstory. It's I'm like, all this needs is a woman with great hair running away from a huge building, from a huge mansion
I'll write
at
that
night.
down. Be sure and slide that in there somewhere.
And Jamie McVeigh is again in that same vein where you have I cannot remember who it was who said that that a lot of good ghost stories. So they probably said every, and I'm like, I don't want to make that blanket statement, but a lot of very good ghost stories are about something has been unfairly forgotten, like the movie Poltergeist. It's like, why is this happening? Oh, well, because you literally built the house on a burial ground and didn't move the bodies.
Right.
You just put in a lawn and hoped everyone would forget. And Jamie McVeigh, it's like, oh yeah, he's been forgotten, but
all that history and all that horror that
it's been
consumed.
drifted over.
Yeah.
But he can't rest because of the injustice. And so that's one vein of horror, which is that the universe will take steps to redress humankind's mistakes.
Mhm.
If we forget our past will come forth and remind us. Whereas then you've got cosmic horror, which is just like, the universe doesn't care about you. Which is your favorite, red ants or black ants?
Yeah. Well,
Your You're just a speck of dust, and nothing looks more like one speck of dust than another speck of dust.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, I got kind of am torn between those two polar opposites, I guess, if they are opposites, but the two extremes anyway. Because I do love science fiction, the hard, sci-fi spaceships and ray guns and stuff. So.
Well, there's two problems with hard science fiction. One being that it's hard, and that there will always, if you try to write scientifically accurate science fiction, there will always be some guy with a mathematics PhD out there to critique your orbital mechanics. And it's like, dude, I tried to calculate the speed of light, but I was an English major, and writing a whole novel is a lot of work and requires a set of skills that are entirely different and apart from the set of skills of calculating an orbital insertion.
Yeah,
so, it's hard. And two, it's hard to keep up. I mean, you look at stuff that was written as futuristic in 1984 when I was a kid, and it's like, no, we're way past that now.
Yeah, it's like that commercial for some cell phone or some the wristwatch or something that's like, oh no, we already got that. Oh, this already does it.
Yep.
Yeah. So, anyway, with the fantastic, looks like you got free reign, and you keep up the good work on that. We always enjoy reading your stuff, and
thank you.
Good luck with the God Cancer project.
It's going strong so far. So
great. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today, and
thanks for having me. It's been a delight.
See you next week.
All right. See you then.
So long.